My name is Ray Dogum, and welcome to VibeCast. Thank you for joining us as we explore the exciting advancements in technology-enabled collaboration to excel important drug development. Vibe Bio seeks to find every cure for every community. We think big, as no one should be left behind in the pursuit of living a healthy, happy, and productive life, free from disease. Collectively, we have the skills, we have the technology, we have the passion. We now need the community catalyst to bring it all together. That's Vibe. We see a future where communities of biopharma experts and patients collaborate to identify high potential medicines and have the ability to access capital on demand to actually develop them. The VibeCast is our weekly informational podcast as we explore some of the hottest topics in drug development with some of the dynamic people that make up the Vibe community. Join us to learn, imagine, question, and help us identify and develop solutions together. Our guest today is Gina Zanik, co-founder of the Rare and Undiagnosed Network. I'll let her introduce herself. She has a presentation as well, so looking forward to this conversation. Gina, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me, Ray. I'm really excited to be here. I'm the co-founder and executive director of the Rare and Undiagnosed Network. I am an undiagnosed patient. I have 3 children, Ava, Oscar, and Lucy, that are all undiagnosed as well. And we're here today to talk about Undiagnosed Day coming up on April 29th. A little bit of all of the adventures we've had on our Diagnostic Odyssey, and really excited to be here. Thank you for having us.
Awesome. Gina, why don't you tell the audience where you're calling us from as well?
I'm calling you from Salt Lake City and Utah. We've been here since 2013.
Amazing. So now why don't we get into the presentation and begin learning more about what you've been working on?
Great. Excited to share. So on April 29th, it's Undiagnosed Rare Disease Day, short tag, hashtag Undiagnosed Day. And Undiagnosed Day is to celebrate those living with an undiagnosed disease and their families. And again, we've lost so many recently, so it's also to honor the ones that we have lost, both children and adults. We also want to raise awareness with the general public, policymakers, public authorities, researchers, anyone that is interested in undiagnosed diseases. It's imperative to talk about genomics and the importance of genomics for undiagnosed disease patients. So for Utah, we actually had Governor Spencer Cox declare April 29th as Undiagnosed Rare Disease Day. I'm pretty sure that we are the only state in the United States this year that has a declaration for Undiagnosed Rare Disease Day. And we are honored that Governor Spencer Cox, who has ties to the rare disease community, and he also did the declaration for Rare Disease Day for us as well on February 28th. So very excited that the governor is aware of our work and the importance of it in Utah. So also my daughter, Ava, my oldest, created the awareness ribbon that you see on the slide. But if you're listening, it's the ribbon similar to the rare disease community, the black and white stripes, but we added in baby blue and baby pink. We felt representing baby boys and baby girls. And so I think she was only, well, it's 2016, so she was pretty young when she designed it, and our marketing team took it to the next level. So we're very proud of the undiagnosed awareness ribbon.
You must be very proud that you were able to accomplish this. It must have been a lot of work. And, this isn't the first year that you celebrated, right?
No, correct.
When you started celebrating or when you tried to bring awareness originally?
Yeah, so there's multiple days that internationally nonprofits and companies raise awareness for the undiagnosed community. We chose Undiagnosed Day as April 29th just to keep the day the same every year. Some people do the last Friday. I just wanted to keep it one day every year, April 29th. So we started in 2016, and we started small. But by, I think, the next year, we had people in Spain and France, all over the world, lighting up buildings for the Undiagnosed Day. And they do that also for Rare Disease Day. But to see it become not just local, national, internationally known has been really spectacular. We will be working with the UDNI this year on April 29th. My daughter, Ava, at 15, will be a part of their presentation. That'll be a world international event. So she'll speak on that, about her journey as undiagnosed. So there's a lot going on, not a lot in person still. This is such a high risk group of patients. So we kind of are still keeping to the social media level, but hopefully next year we'll have something in person.
That's awesome. And maybe for some people who might not be familiar with this day, what it means to be undiagnosed. Can you sort of explain to the community, what is classified as what classifies someone to be undiagnosed?
Yes, the UDN, Undiagnosed Disease Network, and the NIH, UDNI all have really wonderful definitions of it. As a patient, it's about going to multiple specialists and they can't find the root cause. So most of these diagnostic journeys, which we'll get into later, it takes 5 to 8 years possibly to get a diagnosis. And one of the things that we at the goal of Undiagnosed Day that we started really championing in 2016 is we are undiagnosed, internationally diagnosed as undiagnosed. So that is our diagnosis. And we wanted people to respect that as part of our journey. We live in that world of the unknown for now and probably for a long time. So it is our diagnosis, and that's very important for people to see. But on a clinical level, it's seeing multiple specialists without finding a root cause.
Interesting. Thanks for sharing that.
Yes, so this is my 3 children. That picture was taken, Ava, Oscar, and Lucy in 2015. So a while ago by Susan Atwater. So Run, really, I think this is where you want me to kind of just talk about Run and the history of Run.
Yeah, I think explaining sort of like when you first started Run and then sort of what has it developed into. I think that would be interesting for people, and like how many partners you have and things like that. Sorry.
Great. So the Rare and Undiagnosed Network was formed in the summer of 2014. I think we became official in November of 2014. And it came out of me really screaming to the world for help for my children. And at the time, we were looking for whole genome sequencing, exome sequencing, and couldn't get it covered by insurance. So my original mission of Run was really wanting whole genome sequencing to be covered by insurance companies. It's definitely evolved into raising awareness about the importance of genomics, creating community and educational series, and just bringing awareness for undiagnosed and rare diseases. But I started with Dr. Reed Robinson of Tuke Genomics at the time. And I found him by emailing, calling all around the country for someone to listen. And I was referred to him because he happened to be really close to me in Salt Lake City. So we met, and I remember specifically, we said, well, we'll just the Rare Network. And I said, well, what about the undiagnosed community? He goes, well, Rare Undiagnosed Network, Run. And it came so innocently in that conversation, but the power behind those words and where it's come now, it took a life of its own.
Yeah, absolutely. Many people are familiar with the idea of rare diseases, right? You have, I think it's classified as any disease with less than 200 people that have been diagnosed with it. But undiagnosed is another big problem. And that's what you're trying to bring awareness to. And I think that's really important. And you also have people that may be diagnosed incorrectly. So they're actually not diagnosed with the disease they have. They're incorrectly diagnosed with something else, causing issues such as maybe they're taking medications that are have side effects and it's not really helping them treat their symptoms too. So there's a lot to this. So I appreciate you having the courage to start developing it. And let's
and also not to interrupt you, but also to add that is absolutely true. The misdiagnosed, the N of 1 it's a huge community. And also you can look at undiagnosed in rare diseases, but you can also look at undiagnosed in the general public. So undiagnosed, misdiagnosed in general health is a main issue. And another part to mention is also you can have an umbrella diagnosis, but yet not know the root cause and be under an umbrella diagnosis. So where you could take it one more step with genetic sequencing and really find the root cause. And one of those examples, I think of a friend of mine, Annette Mon, that lived in epilepsy. She ran the nonprofit for epilepsy, did genetic testing and found KGB, not KDG, KGB was the root cause, and he was the first patient in the country, and she went on that. So it's interesting to me how big this issue, this concern, this community is when you look at all the different facets and avenues that you could explore.
How many members do you have as part of the network now?
I just think it's hard to put a number on it because I look at it's, again, we work with patients, the caregivers, physicians, researchers, biotech, pharmaceutical companies, and educational, schools. I mean, it's such a large community. I think on a day-to-day in Utah, I mean, we have a huge, wonderful community. I work with Mark Christensen of Angel Hands Foundation, who also does a lot of here in Salt Lake City. But on a national, international level, it's hard to put a number on it because it's, you know, it's ebb and flow too. Some of them stay in, are very active. Some come in, leave. So it's hard to put a number on it, but it's a pretty huge network.
So what lessons have you learned from Run?
So again, the number one lesson that I've learned with Run is to shorten the diagnostic odyssey. And when you go around the country and you go to conferences, it's something that everyone is trying to do and to improve. For me, we've gone on 14 years. I've mentioned that the average is 5 to 8, but it's years of children's childhood, right? It's a young adults maybe not able to have a family, or it's not being able to provide for their families as an adult. So how do we shorten that diagnostic odyssey? And that's the number one lesson that I've learned. And again, I love to be an advocate, but I'm looking for the action, always wanting to work on that diagnostic odyssey.
One thing I want to say here as well is you are saying it's a diagnostic odyssey. So a lot of people have heard of the patient journey, maybe diagnostic journey, but now that I'm thinking about it, journey sort of, when you think about that, it sounds like something that is relatively, it's long, but not too long, maybe a week or a couple of weeks or a few months. So when you talk about an odyssey, it's like a long, long journey. And that's first I've seen it. So it's really cool that you're,
yeah, we're in it.
Yeah.
14 years. And when someone explained it to me too, it's a powerful 2 words that try to explain the journey.
And it's tough. I'm sure you're still on the Odyssey, right? In some ways.
Yes.
And can you share a little bit about, some of the progress maybe that you've seen so far?
There hasn't, and I think that's been the aha moment for my children. We started when Ava was 3, and we were in the arachnoid cyst area. Then we went on to the autonomic journey when we realized that at 5 she had it, at 3 Oscar did, 18 months Lucy did, and then we went on a horrific journey with Ava when she hit her head and had 4 cranial brain surgeries and became shunt dependent over her 6th birthday. So we spent about 5-6 weeks in the hospital. So, I mean, we've been to the edge of where, a lot of parents that have been there where no one's listening. You're going to the ER over and over and over again. They send you home. This time, my husband and I refused to leave. She started to have papilledema, which means she was started to go blind. And it ended up that her spinal pressure was at 55 and it should have been about 18. She had emergency external drain put in, which did not work, a second external drain, which did not work, and a cyst fenestration, which did not work, and she's shunt dependent. So when she was 6, that was terrifying, where you never want another mom or family to go through what we did. And that's also why Run started, is to get that word out of there. Listen to your gut as a parent. Listen to, if you can't have a doctor listening to you, find another team. Don't just accept that everything's fine or it's in your head or they're going to be okay. You have to fight for yourself and you have to fight for your child. And that's a big lesson also with Run. But we went on that, then autonomic genetic testing for years. We're in computers all over the country. And so that's the positive of being able to be proactive and, have the access. We've had a lot more access than other families, but continually every day to wake up and say, what am I going to do today to keep fighting for myself and my children?
Wow, I can only imagine that. I'm sorry that you had to, go through all of that and your children as well and your entire family, really.
Yes.
Collaboration. Tell me more about that.
Well, it's the key to everything. And it's at the foundation of what Run is. I mean, Run is building that network by building collaborations. And there's not one person on this planet I won't listen to. I want to hear everyone's thoughts in there. Pick their brains and talk and have these, evolving conversations about rare and undiagnosed diseases. And, so far there's so many in the rare space, global genes, NORD, everyday, sorry, pause, RELA. And there's so many different ones that we work with. And in the undiagnosed space, there hasn't been a lot. There are now the UDN, UDNI, there just was the UDNF formed. So there's all these different people out there trying to help for the community. Why wouldn't you all work together? I mean, there's the power in the numbers, and as my husband would say, the brain trust, right? The more you bring in, the more you have these, even working with Recursion Pharmaceuticals and all of these, on the other side, biotech pharmaceutical companies, listening, having a seat at the table and all talking is the only way to do it. It's to bring down those silos that everyone, is stuck in. Even within different hospital systems, they have silos, right? There's silos everywhere. And how do you break those silos down and collaborate?
That's true. Let's hear more about the Diagnostic Odyssey that you and your family had to go through.
Yeah, so I mentioned earlier about the Diagnostic Odyssey, and these are the hard pictures because you see that first picture when you met my kids, it's invisible, right? I always say they look cute and they're high functioning and pretty bright, but their bodies do not work. So these are the real hard facts of what their childhood looked like. Every week we were somewhere, and they would be terrified to go into the car. And as a parent, it was devastating to put them through that. But I was, we're all trying to help them so they could have a better life. And thankfully, I continue to do that with Ava, or she most definitely would be blind and most likely pass on. And so fighting for them, and again, I'll go in detail about an autonomic, what an autonomic neuropathy, a dysautonomic dysfunction is, and it's everything that you do naturally. So it's breathing, motility.
Yeah, so these are definitely very powerful images. And I can't imagine how many times you were in a hospital and you didn't take photos, right? There must have been many. So this is just a small snippet of the last, almost 2 decades of your life, 16 years or so. So thanks for sharing this with the community. I think it's powerful for people to see this, especially other families who have children who might have an undiagnosed disease. So it kind of makes people not feel alone, because I'm sure, especially in the beginning, you and your family felt alone in some cases. And this helps others be more comfortable asking those questions, when the doctor says, oh, there's nothing we can do for you.
Well, and I think documentation. I mean, you do need the photos. Still today, I show those photos of Ava's hands. I mean, and it's hurtful to do it, but it's to journal everything is hard. It's really hard, but you have to somehow have that information because you're going to have to say it, unfortunately, over and over and over again. So the photos do really help a lot, because as we all know, not every time when we are in that doctor's office are they going to see what we see at home. So the documentation and photos and in journals really help. So this slide, you asked about major challenges for undiagnosed. For our family, it's the undiagnosed autonomic neuropathy. So that's everything on a cellular level. It's every minute of every day. And my oldest, Ava, speaks publicly as well. And she wrote this slide recently, and she just says it's physical and emotional. And the physical parts of the autonomic nervous system is everything. It's breathing, as it says, breathing, heart rate, temperature control, your skin, your digestive system, your circulatory system, and your immune systems. And so for that, my kids have been sick since August continuously. The temperature controls are very severe. So I think when you're sitting in a room and you look at my children or you look at me, you can't see what's wrong with us. So the chronic, the invisible, and the undiagnosed disease process is like I said, it's on a cellular level. It's every minute of every day. And my daughter really is, at turning 16, is really now dealing with the emotional side of everything, because it's the constant fatigue, which, for anyone would exhaust you. And in chronic illness, there is a lot of the emotional, the depression, the anxiety, and an overwhelming desperation. And I think recently Ava had a complex migraine and felt like she was having a stroke and was dying. And she wanted to give up. She's like, this is my life. So trying to work with young children, now I'm working with the teenagers, trying to get them to be young adults and on their own. It is exhausting, but the fight in us, we have to persevere. And that's our message to everyone, is just talk to people. You just share your journey. We're always here to listen. Run is always open to sharing other people's journeys, because you can't sit and be alone, as you know, and we've mentioned.
That's amazing. And it takes a lot of strength to be able to do that continuously, day in, day out. So really kudos to you and your family for continuing to be strong, not just for yourselves, but really for the wider community. which is also dealing with undiagnosed disease. So thank you for sharing this. So I understand you're also working with the Utah Jazz and the NBA to also promote awareness about run. So do you want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah, I happen to have a little bit of an in as I'm married to the general manager of the Utah Jazz, Gina Zanik. But when we came here in 2013, I was at a game and there was a little boy with cancer that had a pregame experience. And I looked at Justin and I said, that's so important. I was crying, as everybody was, because he's out there shooting hoops and all that. And bringing awareness to cancer and the need for funding and everything, as we all know, for cancer. But I said, what if we had some of the rare and undiagnosed children on the court? And he said, well, let me talk to Gail Miller, at the time was the owner. And she, hands down, no hesitation, said, bring the kids on the court. So we've had, first year was 2015. And the first year, I mean, it didn't even look like that. I think we had like 3 kids. And the second year we had more. By the last year, we had all the siblings, all the parents, I mean, almost 100 people on the court for the national anthem. And for the ones that couldn't walk, their siblings would push their wheelchairs. For the ones that had siblings that had passed away, that held their photos. And I still cry when I think about it, because it's such a blessed opportunity. And even Bertrand Knight, who has passed on, when we took him to his first NBA game, he's nonverbal. His face lit up and you could just see that he was, seeing the lights and hearing the crowds. And it was a moment in time that I'll always cherish. And so giving that to other families, it's something that has just been wonderful. It's probably my favorite thing, one of my favorite things, because it's on such a high level and it's such an, wonderful experience. And since 2015, over 7 NBA teams have participated. But when the pandemic hit, obviously we're such a high risk group. We kind of put a hold on it, and we talked about it this year, but my kids have been sick since August continuously. So we just didn't feel it was quite ready to return, but we hopeful next year.
Wow. Well, first of all, sorry to hear that your kids are feeling sick now. But one thing I want to say is this must be such an amazing experience for these kids. Like to get this amount of attention, not in the hospital, must be like awesome for them and like a very great, memorable experience. So thank you and your husband for working to set that all up.
It's pretty spectacular. And then when you're there, you just can't believe it's happening. So, and again, these kids have all grown up together. They've known each other since 2015 and it's 2023. So I mean, unfortunately, there's quite a few that have passed on, but also the ones that haven't are still family, and the siblings of them are still like family. It's a really wonderful group here in Utah.
That's great. Really great to hear. And that kind of speaks again to the importance of family and community and being able to support each other, especially when things are challenging. So do you want to talk to us a little bit more about, the importance of family and community?
Yeah. So again, it's hard to put a number on what the run, where we've touched and how many we've touched, but you can see just from Run's experience, we, the patients, the caregivers, but all of the rare and undiagnosed stakeholders in Utah, nationally, internationally, are a part of the network. And it's just unbelievable to see, everyone come together with the same goal, push forward for the undiagnosed community, the rare community. This community is larger than anyone really realizes, except the people that are, in it, 24/7. So the more we can say that there's physicians, there's, as pharmaceutical companies, biotech companies, everyone is trying to push forward for the rare and undiagnosed community. So I just felt that slide represents from the patients to the caregivers to all of the rare disease stakeholders that are part of the community.
That's amazing. Yeah. And I'm sure the physicians and, healthcare providers that are experiencing or working with patients who are undiagnosed, are there any sort of lessons learned for them that maybe you can share with our audience as well? Because I'm sure some doctors must have been, surprised or bewildered about something or a patient or something. Any kind of learnings that they can learn from?
Well, one of them is, I first learned about when I started Run, we wanted this whole genome sequencing or exome sequencing, and the geneticist at the time said, I can't go out there and advocate for families. It doesn't work in the setting within the hospital for me to go out and advocate. You as a patient can go out there and advocate for this. And it was an aha moment going, he taught me that I have to be the voice for them to get this covered for insurance so they can do the work. And that's a great example when the physicians, as we know, a lot of times they're doing that. Hey, we'd love to do this, but this is the role of a patient advocate. Can you help us with the clinical trials, with everything? We need to partner, which we'll talk about too coming at. But I think the voice that, or the physicians are giving the patients a voice and encouraging them to go out there and raise awareness. Because as a mom, you really don't know what to do because you listen to your doctor for the advice. So when they're putting that into your hands, I think it's a great, more physicians shouldn't be afraid to tell a parent, hey, we need your help. We need this to be out in public. You should call your media. You should get this story in the paper. You know, all of these things, you know, we're a team. And I think that's the change from being a patient. And my father was a physician, and back in the day, it was, you know, the doctor, you listened and you probably didn't interrupt. And now it's evolved, at least in our family. My physicians are my friends, and they've been with me for a long time. I look to them for guidance, but they also look to me for guidance. Hey, what can we do to push forward? The other wonderful story that has stuck with me over the years is, you know, with HIPAA, or in all those laws with HIPAA, of course, but there's also this, if the patient's putting it out there, it can get out there. There isn't the HIPAA because we've put it out there. And there's a lot of researchers that want to work directly with the patients, and they can't unless you get connected and they take that wall away. So there was the ones that were doing our sequencing in Wisconsin, we had that relationship and we met. And I mean, very much a blessed opportunity. Not all families have that, but they actually put the children's photographs up on the sequencing machines to make it personal instead of a white folder. So I think that's what bringing those walls down, it comes from sharing from a patient perspective and letting your story out there.
That's awesome. Can you talk to us more about the work you did to make sure that people's genomes were sequenced, whole exome genome sequencing, you're saying? And like, just more details on that, I think would be fantastic.
Yeah, I think when it was 2012 is when we started in Wisconsin with the genetic team. And
which genetic team? Like, sorry, not names, but is it part of a hospital system? Or
yes, so I was going to say Gunter Shera, but yes, it was Medical College of Wisconsin. Sorry, pause. It was with the Medical College of Wisconsin and also Children's Hospital of Wisconsin. So they were working together, and so we were with the Children's Hospital at the time, so Children's Hospital of Wisconsin. And they were able to, after fighting it over and over and over, doing peer reviews, they were able to get the exome, but they were not going to be able to get the genome done. And at that time in 2012, it was going to be, I think it was going to be $30,000 per the 5. So yeah, $150,000 for our family. So that obvious price has come way, way down. But that's when we were, so I mean, it wasn't going to be, and it was, everyone was telling us that that's what we needed to do to find an answer. Unfortunately, we're so complex that it's not, the science isn't there for us now. It will be hopefully in the near future, although they say 25 plus years. But there's so many other things now in the world of genomics that is being covered by insurance. And I think this might come up also. I think it comes up, so I'll pause. But there are so many more institutions with undiagnosed programs. And in 2012, there really wasn't. The NIH had one, but it was very hard to access. And now, I mean, there's so many undiagnosed programs within institutions, so that we've come a long way.
Yeah, and genetic sequencing as a technology has improved so much too. And like you mentioned, the costs have gone down. So that makes sense. Back in 2012 or before that, not as easy to find, providers to run sequencing for your samples. Now you can get a whole genome exome sequencing for definitely like less than $1,000 per person.
Yes, it's come a long way, and it's changing every day. I mean, it's so yes, we were back in the old days. It's come a long way since then.
Well, that's good. That's some positive.
Yes.
So let's talk about some of Run's accomplishments so far.
So this is just, I was going to say, so far, this is just this year. So I think you're asking in the question about the roadmap, and I was like, we've actually done quite a lot already and really proud of that. So one of the things that I am honored to mention is that I'm the co-chair of the Rare Disease Advocate. Sorry, pause. One of the things I'm really proud about is that I'm the co-chair of the Rare Disease Advisory Council, the RDAC, and we created a policy guide and I presented it to the Utah Life Science Innovation Caucus. So that's been really exciting. There's probably now about 23 RDACs across the country, but Utah, we are housed in the Department of Health and been working together. There's 17 members. And so our policy guide, we had an introductory level to our legislatures and to our legislature. And so it was really an honor to work on the policy guide. And we are still in the infancy of the RDAC and looking forward to what it'll come over the next few years.
That's amazing. Yeah. And again, congratulations on all the accomplishments so far. It's really cool.
Yeah. And the governor declared Rare Disease Day on February 28th, as I mentioned previously. And we had a wonderful Rare Disease Day event at Recursion Pharmaceuticals Worldwide headquarters. The CEO is Chris Gibson, who's a dear friend. And what I was proud about that event is we had wonderful speakers, but the panel and the core of the speakers were these four here: Ethan Bruns, my daughter Ava Zanik, Rachel Wasden, and Kingston Atwater. And Ethan is now studying at the University of Utah because he's a success story. He has a treatment and is studying to be a geneticist. So he's kind of the wonderful story for all of us to, pray for. And then Rachel spoke, and she's an undiagnosed patient that is a newlywed and trying to, maneuver life as an adult, and the struggles are real. And then my daughter Ava spoke, and there's two things that Ava said that brought the house down. And one is, imagine if you only have 3 years of being healthy, and it's the first 3 years of your life, and you don't remember them because you were too young. And the second one.
Powerful.
Yeah, my husband didn't have a dry eye. I mean, there wasn't a dry eye in the room by the end of these four speaking. And the other one that stuck with me is, imagine being 5 years old and you're told that you're undiagnosed and that's all you will be for the rest of your life. You will never have an answer for the root cause and they'll treat your symptoms. At 5 years old, as she said, a literal child, and you hear that. And here she is turning 16 in June, and all we can do is treat her symptoms. So that's a tough message. And Kingston, sweet Kingston, he brought the house down. His sister, Asia Atwater, Susan and Clint's daughter, passed away in August. And Kingston's 14 and shared what it's like to have the honor of living with a rare disease sibling and how hard the loss is. So I was just so moved by the power of the next generation and passing that torch. Us moms sat in the audience and watched them, and mothers and fathers sat in the audience and watched them, and just look, the power of these next generation that live this and what they can do with what, path they've had already and what they can do to change the future. I'm very hopeful.
That's really amazing. And they have a really amazing role model to follow as well. So you've done a great job leading this whole community, it sounds like. And
well, their moms, Ann Bruns and Susan and Kate, they're all powerhouse moms too. So I think that's the thing. We all kind of, a lot of them, we all work together. When we did Utah Rare a few years ago, and that brought all the nonprofits together, all the rare disease stakeholders for about 4 years. And again, that was 2014. And these kids and us moms have grown up together as advocates, as parents, and in this space. And Utah is very unique in that way that we've really stuck together and really made it a family here in Utah.
So powerful. And yeah, I didn't mean to take away from the other community as well. I definitely
not at all.
It's a community effort for sure. So not one person can do all this. So I appreciate that. And then I'm very interested in your meetup February 28th at Recursion's Pharmaceutical Worldwide. That's really interesting because I think, it's become very apparent that patients should be involved in the drug development process from the beginning and of course to the end in many different ways. So I don't know, can you share any additional tidbits or information that you gathered from that day, or just in general about how pharma and biotech are working more with patients?
Yeah, so and here in Utah, we even had Bio Utah part of it, and the biohive were there. I mean, the patients are at the center. I always say the patients are at the center of it all. And so when you bring them on as a seat at the table, right, it's benefiting everyone. And so the more and more that you have patient advocates working with as a representation, when you have patient advocates working for a pharmaceutical company or biotech, and they're there to be the patient advocate and work with the families, so many of the moms that have been running nonprofits have actually switch from nonprofit to go work in that space. And I'm so proud of them. And because they're there to help the patients, work with the companies, bring it all together. And again, that's that collaboration piece, right? And if we all work together, and it's come so far in the 10, 12, 13 years I've been, to see how much the patient voice is at the center and how everyone on pharmaceutical biotech really knows it and listens. And for Recursion, Chris Gibson, I mean, we were at the table with him when he had very few employees back in 2014. Now he's a worldwide headquarters and, doing amazing things all these years. And at the center, he was listening to us from the beginning. And so that was why it was a full circle to go back to the rare disease community that was there with him when he started Recursion. And I think, so many, again, Anne Brunt, Ethan's mom, Anne works in pharmaceutical. It's wonderful because they've gone the journey. They've been there for Ethan. They've seen the power of the drug that saved his life, that he does, infusions every 14 days. I think it's every 8 days now to stay alive. So we know the power and the hope that pharmaceutical and biotech give to our families. So to be able to work together, I think is so important and really incredible that that's what's happening.
That's great to hear. I'm excited for the future as well. And I think there's so many more opportunities with digital communities of people coming together and being more easily connected to these companies as well. So what's on the roadmap for Run in 2023?
Well, there's so much to do. And so it's like I told you, there's so much to do every day. And I'm still a full-time mom, and I always say an unpaid Uber driver, right? But the roadmap for Run, I mean, every day I wake up going, what am I going to do today to further for my family and the entire community? And so I'm really excited about the RDAC, as I mentioned. We continually do that we have a stakeholder partnership work group, a resource communications work group that I'm on, a legislative work group. And they also have a data work group. So there's a lot to do with the RDAC on subgroups and a lot of meetings. And we're hoping to have a luncheon with the legislature as a meet and greet this fall, so they get to know us better. And so our recommendations will be heard during the next legislation session next year. So that's always an ongoing. I'm very proud of being a patient advocacy advisor for the Rare X Global Genes, which has been founded by Nicole Boyce, and they're really active on their platform. And Global Genes is, always active for rare disease communities and having events. So always the collaborations with them, I'm always excited about. And I'm really excited to be a board member of the Metrodora Institute Foundation. The Metrodora Institute just opened in Salt Lake City recently. They're focusing on autoimmune neuron axis disorders, and their founder is Dr. Laura Pace, James Hemp in Fiji. They are wonderful, and they are giving a lot of hope to the undiagnosed community that doesn't fit into the general healthcare system. And so they're kind of breaking all the rules and open, and they're giving a lot of hope to the undiagnosed community. So excited to be a part of that. And also the Undiagnosed Disease Network International with Bill Gall and Helene. They are active having events every quarter around the world. So I kind of haven't been able to travel to the events as much as I want to, because it's really incredible that there is the Undiagnosed Network International, because it's everyone. It grows. I think in the beginning it was a small group, but now it's so many people, and it's touched everywhere around the world for undiagnosed diseases. That's incredible. So to be a part of that, I feel very honored. And again, hopefully doing Run's MBA initiative. But every day there's new emails, right? There's new people reaching out. It's been very active, I think, coming out of COVID this fall and getting into the winter and spring. So every day I'm kind of surprised at what new collaboration presents itself. So kind of excited to see where things go.
That's incredible. And I think that, this will continue to be a growing community for you and the rest of the patients and your children as well, who, may continue on with this program and try to build it on their own. So, maybe, right? Who knows? who knows the future.
Yeah.
But I just
Yeah.
want to thank you, Gina, so much for sharing this and putting this together and helping us understand, first of all, what is undiagnosed diseases and what is undiagnosed rare disease day. Again, for the folks who are listening, it's April 29th and officially recognized in the state of Utah. So is there anything that we haven't talked about that you'd like to share with the community?
No, I just feel very blessed to be able to share our journey and continue to spread awareness for the undiagnosed community. It's a very long road. Again, it's chronic, it's invisible, it's at a cellular level. These families need, more help in clinical care. That's one thing I've been trying to preach, is that there's a lot of funding for research, but the clinical care is lacking because there's a lot of physicians that it's hard to find that understand or have the time for complex medical care. So just kind of keep pushing forward and raising awareness and hoping for more action in the community too.
Let's talk a little more about the clinical care part, because yeah, you're right. There is like a subset of funding that goes to drug discovery and drug development and research. And can you share more about what you're seeing on the clinical side before we wrap up here? Because I just think it's an interesting point you made. Yeah.
Yeah, well, and that's the piece that's missing, that is, there isn't the clinical care support for undiagnosed families, or very little. And that's partly because specialties focus on one body part, correct? So, and the word that's hard for me, the sorry, pause, I have to practice it. Interdisciplinary. Okay. The interdisciplinary, strategy is what we need. We need to be seen as a whole and not by individual specialties. So I think that clinical care now, the way that the healthcare system is set up, is you see specialists, and it's very rare for you to see, multiple doctors to see the whole. And Metrodor Institute is working on that. The Mayo Clinic, works on that. The UDNI, the UDN, I'm sorry, work on that as well. But it's still on a day-to-day level, it isn't the normal. And for doctors to have the time to read the files, it's not the physician's fault. They admit that, and they're very open about it. It's just not realistic in the current medical system to care for complex medical children and adults. And that's where that piece of trying to change for clinical is much needed. And I keep pushing on where's the funding for more clinical care.
Interesting. I got you. So like more of a holistic medicine approach versus, which part of the hospital am I walking into today? Yeah,
I think yes, holistic too. But I think for example, the autonomic system, in fact, yes, for example, the autonomic system is everything. So you can go to your GI for the motility issues, but that doesn't help. And the motility issues, there's a lot in your gut that might be coming from your brain. Your brain, for example, for certain children, my children, it's the brain is controlling it, not just your GI. So then you need neurology, but then the skin is bad. So you need dermatology, you need rheumatology, and you can't get them all in the same room, right? So you go to this doctor. That's why the Diagnostic Odyssey is so long, because you're going to all these and they're like, well, here's what I can do for that. That when you need them all in the room to say, how are we going to view them as, again, precision medicine, right? It's every individual, and they need to be seen as a whole. And I think that's the problem with the medical system, the way it's set up now, and seeing the undiagnosed programs that institutions are setting up. That is what they're doing. They're bringing in the multiple physicians to look at the person as whole. And so I think that's the way that it needs to be for more families before they're in this diagnostic odyssey that long, right? I think, hey, if there's 3 different systems that aren't working, then they need to get in the room. And that would be so much more helpful in clinical care. And it's hard to get that to happen right now.
Correct. Got you. Okay. Makes total sense. Again, Gina, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. And happy Undiagnosed Rare Disease Day, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right.